If transferred to US ownership, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant may be abandoned by the Russian occupiers who have been there since the spring of 2022. The Zaporizhzhia NPP may be vacated if it is transferred to the ownership of the United States, Reuters reports, citing its own sources in the Ukrainian industry. It is emphasized that US President Donald Trump's proposal for the US to take control of the Zaporizhzhia NPP could be an example of Washington testing out different ideas to see and analyze what can really work. It is also noted that the idea of the Americans controlling the Zaporizhzhia NPP puts pressure on the aggressor country, the Russian Federation. It is interesting that in the case of the American option of control over the Zaporizhzhia NPP, the liberation of additional territory may also follow, namely thousands of square kilometers of the Ukrainian territory that is currently controlled by the Russian armed forces. In case of control over the Zaporizhzhia NPP, the American side will also need a neighboring thermal power plant, which was also seized by the Russians in 2022. The city of Energodar, where, as is known, the Zaporizhzhia NPP is located, as well as neighboring settlements, a road corridor in Zaporozhye, where the main control panels of the Zaporozhye NPP are located. By the way, US Secretary of Energy Chris Wright noted that at the moment there is no dialogue about the possibility of US companies acquiring ZNPP. It is known that the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which has been under Russian occupation for 3 years, is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. Recall, President Donald Trump's administration is seeking to secure new terms for US access to critical minerals and energy assets in Ukraine as it pushes for a peace deal with Russia. Washington expects Kyiv to agree to detailed provisions about who owns and controls a joint investment fund and to a broader scope, potentially covering US ownership of other economic assets such as Ukraine's NPPs. 2 Ukrainian officials said. This would mean reopening the yet unsigned minerals deal. Speaking at the White House, Trump said the US was trying to sign agreements on rare earth metals and minerals around the world, but that Ukraine was a particular focus. We're doing very well with regard to Ukraine and Russia, and one of the things we're doing is signing a deal very shortly with respect to rare earths with Ukraine, he said, but no specific details were given. Ukrainian officials are concerned about accepting unfavorable terms in a broader deal, especially after the US temporarily suspended arms deliveries and intelligence sharing with Kyiv earlier this month. According to a readout of Trump's call with his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, the leaders discussed Ukraine's electrical supply and nuclear power plants and that the United States could be very helpful in running those plants with its electricity and utility expertise.